Hello and welcome to Love Thy Lawyer, where we talk to real lawyers about their lives in and out of the practice of law, how they got to be lawyers, and what their experience has been. I'm Louis Goodman, the host of the show, and yes, I'm a lawyer. Nobody's perfect. He is the founding attorney of a successful immigration law firm based in Oakland, California. He wants to change the world by defending the rights of immigrants. He speaks both Spanish and Mandarin Chinese in addition to the King's English. He is the author of several books, and of great interest to me, he hosts the Empowered Immigrant podcast. Otis Landerholm, welcome to Love Thy Lawyer.
Louis, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Well, I'll tell you, it's really interesting having you on because not only are you an attorney, but you're also a podcaster. So I want to talk about all of those things as we go forward this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And it's a real pleasure to be doing this with you. I love that you also are a podcaster and a lawyer. I don't think that there's that many of us. So yeah, this is an absolute pleasure.
I don't know, you do some internet Googling, you might be surprised.
And probably more by the day, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, when you're not podcasting, what kind of law practice do you have?
Right. So we're an immigration law firm based in Oakland, as you said there, and thank you for that introduction. And we specifically within immigration law, we focus on deportation defense. And so we love the complex immigration cases where nobody else wants to take them, and there's deportation proceedings involved, and immigration is coming at 4 a.m. and knocking on our client's door and looking to enforce immigration laws. And we like to fight for people and like to fight so that people can stay in the U.S.
How big is your firm?
In terms of employees, we have 19 employees.
Wow.
And so so quite a few staff. Of those, three aside from myself are attorneys. So I guess including me, there's 4 total attorneys.
Where are you from originally?
I was born in Washington State, just north of Seattle. And I had I would say a diverse childhood. My father was the pastor of a church. He was the pastor of the United Methodist Church where I grew up. And then when I was 3 years old, we as a family moved up to Alaska.
Where in Alaska did you live?
A little town that hardly shows up. It might show up on maps nowadays, but it's called Nikiski, Alaska, and it's on what's called the Kenai Peninsula, just south of Anchorage.
Sure. Yeah.
And yeah, I've since gone back to visit a few times. I have a lot of very fond memories from when I was a young child. I was there from when I was 3 to when I was 11. And so, yeah, I've gone back a few times. I took my wife back a few years ago. And great fun to visit kind of the old stomping grounds there in Alaska. But one of the things that I think that meant for me was it got me comfortable meeting with and speaking to and getting to know people from other cultural backgrounds.
Where did you go to high school?
Oh, yeah. So after Alaska, we moved back down to into Washington State. And I lived in a town called Vancouver, Washington.
Right by Portland.
Right by Portland, exactly. So yeah, not to be confused with Vancouver, BC, British Columbia, but yeah, Vancouver, Washington, and that's where I went to high school. I went to middle school, high school, and had a great time there as well.
So how was your experience at high school in Vancouver?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, I was very involved in all kinds of things. I did football, basketball, and track. And my best athletic event was the triple jump. I actually set our high school's freshman record in the triple jump. So I was interested in athletics. But I was also interested in lots of other things. I was in high school government. I was actually the senior class president. And I did a program that was a very rigorous academic program also. So I was sort of like a nerd and a jock and a, school government person all melted into one.
What's the triple jump?
The triple jump is an event in track and field.
And what position did you play on the football team?
I was a tight end, and I was a tight end and did a little bit of various positions on defense, linebacker, things like that. But I really liked offense. I liked scoring touchdowns.
I guess so. So after you got done scoring touchdowns and jumping in high school, where did you go to college?
Right. So I ended up going to Washington State University, which is in Pullman, Washington. It's in Eastern Washington.
Right.
And
they're the Cougars, right?
The Cougars. Yeah, that's right. Go Cougs. If there's any Cougar fans out there, I'm sure they're around. Every once in a while, you run into one. But yeah, so I graduated from Washington State University. I ended up getting 2 degrees there. One in what they call foreign languages and cultures. It's basically their linguistics degree. And the other degree I have is in philosophy.
Wow. Yeah. Philosophy. I'm always impressed by people who are philosophers.
I don't know if I'm much of a philosopher really, but I did get a degree in it.
Now, after college, did you take some time off before you went to law school, or did you go right into law school after you graduated?
Yeah, well, when I was in college, my freshman year of college actually was when 9/11 happened. And so I remember being there, and I remember, the Twin Towers falling. And I remember I was studying philosophy. I was like, gosh, I've got to get to the bottom of this. I've got to figure out what are all the problems in the world, right? And so part of that was okay, I started really getting the travel bug. And when I was in college, I decided to study abroad. I studied abroad twice in my undergraduate degree, first in Spain and then in Argentina. And really, I wanted to really get good at Spanish. And so, so that's what I did. And then after graduating, then I still had the travel bug in me. And so, yes, I took time off in between college and law school. But what I did with that time off is first I went to Japan for 1 year because I had been in Europe when I was in Spain, and I traveled quite a bit in Europe. And then I'd been in Argentina to study Spanish, but I traveled all through South America, Chile, Peru, Bolivia, Paraguay, Uruguay. I went all over the place. And so I hadn't ever been to Asia. And I was like, well, man, you gotta go check out Asia. And so I went to Japan for 1 year, and I was teaching English and studying some Japanese, and I was playing guitar and doing some other fun stuff. And then I went to China for 2 years, and I really fell in love with China and decided to really go for learning Mandarin before figuring out what I really wanted to do with my life, which back then I wasn't sure what that would be, but I did decide to apply for law school and then got in. I didn't do as well as maybe I would have loved to have done on the LSATs, but I got into Golden Gate University in San Francisco and started there in 2007, I think it was. And I had an outstanding experience in law school. And really,
tell me about that, an outstanding experience.
I didn't know whether or not law school would be for me. And I can tell you the backstory there. My grandfather was a lawyer. And actually, if you want to know the cool truth about my history, my grandmother was a lawyer.
Wow.
So she was one of the first women to graduate from University of Oregon Law School. And I think she was the second woman to graduate from U of O School of Law. And so that was pretty cool. So I had a lot of lawyers in my family. In fact, my aunt is a judge. My brother's an attorney. I've got cousins who were lawyers. And my grandfather was the founding attorney of the largest law firm in Vancouver, Washington.
Graduated from college. You've spent a year working and teaching in Japan. You've spent a couple years in China. You've learned Mandarin. I mean, what is it that kind of got you to say, hey, I want to go back to the United States and be a lawyer?
Well, so the truth is I wasn't exactly sure if I wanted to be a lawyer or not, but I did have this burning question. It wasn't whether or not to practice law. The question that I had was, hey, you know something? I have now traveled in over 25 different countries. I have lived in 5 different countries: Spain, Argentina, Japan, China, and then Ecuador. I it was actually in law school. I did a legal internship in Ecuador. And I've traveled to all these places, and it was very simple for me to be able to travel to each of these places, get a visa, get it in my passport, get on an airplane, fly there. In China, it took a couple of days for them to switch my visa to a work visa. In Japan, it was a little bit more of a process, all right? But not really a big deal. Not really a big deal. And at the same time, there are thousands of people who die trying to enter the United States. And it's like so insanely difficult to get a visa or to get a permit or to get some kind of access to the United States. And it just had me wondering this big question, like, why is it so simple for some people like you or I to travel pretty much wherever we want to on planet Earth? And yet, why is it so insanely difficult for the vast majority of people on planet Earth to do the same thing? And that was like the question that I was like, okay, I should go to law school, if for no other reason. Maybe I don't want to be a lawyer, but I want to figure out the answer to that question.
Interesting.
And I found out the answer.
All right. And what is it?
I mean, the answer is simple, right? And you do learn about it in law school. And it's like, look, the reason that there's this difference where it's so easy for some people to travel, so hard for so many other people to travel, is because we've got a legal system that creates that difference.
Well, what was your first legal job?
Actually, so during law school, I did a lot of different internships, all right, with the San Francisco Public Defender's Office, with a couple of small immigration firms locally, even with a PI attorney, I did an internship. But if you want to know my real first job, I'm in it right now, right out of law school. So I took the bar exam, whenever that was, in July. We were getting bar results in November, but by the end of July, and as I was studying for bar exam, my wife and I found out we were expecting our first child. And so then it was like, okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So then we're waiting for bar results, but I was applying for different jobs and things like that. But really what it was is I was working as like a law clerk for a immigration firm, just a solo practitioner here in the Bay Area. And I was like, I can do this.
What do you like about practicing law? I mean, you're someone who, just seems to really have a lot of enthusiasm about it.
I didn't know how much I would love it. I love it. I love being a lawyer. I loved law school even. I really enjoy rational debate, kind of back and forth of how are we going to argue this? How are we going to present that? How are we going to convince this judge, right? How are we going to, negotiate away these couple of issues with the Department of Homeland Security? I love strategy, and immigration law is no simple law to be up against. Department of Homeland Security is no easy adversary, but I have learned to love it. Part of it also is we make such an impact on our clients' lives that, when we win in court, it's like we're the hero. And it really makes a tremendous difference in the lives of our clients. And it's such a great feeling.
Would you recommend it as a career to a young person?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that globally, there is still a huge interest in coming to the United States. Like, we have something in the United States that is uncommon in the rest of the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now, there's so much going on, and there's so much negativity, and the whole thing
Yes,
with COVID and the politics and everything. But really, America is, I mean, I think it's a very special place. And I mean,
absolutely.
I hear you saying it, but I consider myself a real patriot, and because of it, it is a place of opportunity, and a place where really great things happen for people.
I see it. I see it when we win a case, for example, for an immigrant family who's been trying to make a go of it in the U.S. And then finally they like have a green card, and now they're able to open a business, or now they're able to study like they've wanted to study forever, or really do something with their lives. It's like the opportunity door opens. And it's a country, the country that we live in is a country full of opportunities that the rest of the world doesn't necessarily. I mean, some countries, yes, but it's uncommon. It's uncommon, and we are blessed, we are fortunate, we are lucky, whatever language you want to use, to live in the US.
You know, I'm sitting here with a copy of The Empowered Immigrant by Otis Landerholm in my hand. And I haven't read every word of it yet, but have certainly skimmed a good deal of it. And you're a cheerleader, and you're a power of positive thinking person, and you're someone who, I don't know, is almost evangelical in terms of his approach to the practice of law and yourself and your clients. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
I love the first word that you used. I do feel like a cheerleader. I am like, yeah, I'm naturally, I think, a positive person. I love to smile. I play the guitar. I love to sing songs. But now that I have staff, I feel like I'm the cheerleader, like I'm rooting my team on, right? And I love that we've created in my firm a culture that really, we share our wins, and we love to look to the good in all of our clients. And so, gosh, if you start to address somebody's feelings of self-worth, or their feelings of self-confidence, if you start to address that, and if you fix that issue, then it's like, oh my gosh, their case is simple compared to addressing that piece.
Well,
And
what do you
so,
do to address that piece?
well, great. So I'm constantly looking for more. Part of it is our podcast. Part of it is our new book, which, thank you for referencing that. But one thing that we've started doing for our clients, and this is just, you have to be a client of our firm to receive this, but we do a quarterly, we call it our Client Success Summit. And this is something that we've started to do during COVID. And it's a quarterly event, and so we've done two. We've got our next one coming up here, but we're going to be doing it, and we've been getting more and more people in it. And so our Client Success Summit is basically a meeting for our clients where we talk about things that are not their immigration case, and we talk about how can we succeed, how can we achieve really any goal that we set for ourselves regarding financing, regarding any area of our lives, and how can we really go for it.
Yeah, I know that goal setting is an important part of your way of looking at the world, and
Yes.
I've heard it said that if you set your goal at nothing, you're going to be bound to hit it. And
Right.
and so I mean, I agree that setting goals and figuring out how to get there is important. And kind of to that end, maybe you could talk a little bit about the business of practicing law. I mean, you're someone who runs a firm of 20 employees, and and there's a payroll to be made every couple of weeks.
Yep.
And wonder if you talk a little bit about that and how you go about meeting the goal of making that payroll next week.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I had to grow up in regards to that. And it was not it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, to quote, I think Rocky said that, right? It's not all sunshine and rainbows. In 2013, 2 years into opening my firm, I almost lost everything. And I'll never forget it. I mean, it was like staring bankruptcy right in the eyes, because we were out of credit, and I had an attorney at that point, and I had an attorney, a paralegal, and an intern. And but I wasn't managing it right. And really what I wasn't doing is I wasn't pricing our services correctly. And I was very much undercharging. I wasn't valuing myself for the work that we do. And so I was super scared because I thought I was going to lose it all. And what I did is I took the very last bit of money that I had, and I hired a consultant who's like a business consultant, because obviously they don't really teach you how to run a business in law school. And I know a lot of people say that, right? It's not just a saying. It is like,
yeah, it's
solid truth, right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And so, I ended up hiring a consulting firm to start the process of training me in growing up and becoming a business owner, and being like, yo, if I'm going to stand for empowering our clients, if I'm going to encourage our clients to charge what they're worth, then I've got to charge what I'm worth.
With respect to the legal system, do you think that it's fair?
Oh, no.
Somehow I thought that would be your answer. And I really do ask the question neutrally, but in your case, I sort of suspected that would be the answer.
The law is so stacked against the majority of people. Yeah, no, there's, fairness, I think, was thrown out the window a long time ago. But it's an interesting question.
You are also a podcaster.
Yes.
And how did you decide to start thinking about doing a podcast?
Great. Yeah. Thank you for asking that. That my initial reaction to COVID-19 was calls from clients who are anxious. We're getting a lot of phone calls from clients who were worried about, okay, immigration is already delayed. Their case is already taking years and years and years to get an answer. All right. How is this pandemic going to affect their immigration case? And so what I did is I started having a weekly call. All right. And I did 12 weekly calls for our clients. And it was 9 a.m. on Wednesdays. I would do it 9 a.m. in English, and I would do 9:30 in Spanish. All right. And I would talk about the coronavirus, and I would talk about how it's affecting the world of immigration. And I would share one thing that was positive, share one thing that was happy that was going on in my life, or I would interview one client or something like that. Like I would try to do something that wasn't just doom and gloom, try to keep people relating to each other and communicating with each other and stay active and stay engaged, right? And so that's what I did. I did it for 12 weeks. And as I was doing it, our clients were responding so well to it, and we were recording them, right? And with people's permission and all of this, we uploaded them to YouTube. We've got a YouTube channel. I love putting things on there. And then I ended up being like, hey, if these are going so well, why can't we do this in a different context where it's potentially beneficial for all immigrants throughout the country or anywhere, not just for clients of our firm? And so it was really, that was the lemonade that I squeezed out of the lemons, right, of COVID-19. And we launched our podcast, I want to say the end of June 29th, I think it was. And it's been going strong. And we just had our 200th download. So I like that. And then if anybody's out there listening and you want to check it out, look for The Empowered Immigrant and on any platform. And check it out. See what you think.
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes too, so it'll be there.
Cool.
What's your family life like? What do you like?
Yeah, so my wife Wendy is, how can I describe Wendy? She was born in Taiwan. She's an immigrant herself. She immigrated to the U.S. when she was 4 years old. And I would describe her as the rock of our family, and I would call her the rock of the whole firm.
Let me ask you this: if you came into some real money, a couple of $1 billion, what would you do with it?
Or what would I do with it?
What would you do to? What would you change your life at all? Would it change the way you live?
Yeah, cool. I would explode our operations. Like my vision, like my 20-year goal in this firm is to have a headquarters and then have 20 satellite offices throughout the Western United States fighting immigration cases. I want to open a branch of my firm outside of every single immigration detention facility.
Otis, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. You're a fascinating interview. You've had so many really interesting experiences in your life, and you obviously have a lot of interesting experiences ahead of you. So I appreciate your coming on the pod, and I look forward to listening to your podcast as well.
Louis, thank you so much. And thank you for not only the invitation to be here with you today, but thank you for what you are doing, connecting the legal community, connecting us lawyers. I love, we lawyers, sometimes we feel like we're alone in our own battles, in our own offices, whatever, but you really are a stand that lawyers are not alone. And you're really building something generous and something amazing for our community. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. That's it for today's episode of Love Thy Lawyer. Many thanks to my guests who have contributed their time and wisdom and make this show possible. Thanks as always to Joel Katz for music, Brian Matheson for technical support, and Tracy Harvey. I'm Louis Goodman.
Ask your employer for a raise. Even if you don't have immigration status, go ask your employer for a raise. Why? Because you're a human being and you're worth it.